In 1940, a man was pulled from the snow. Half his face was gone. He had been shot by an explosive bullet at close range. Doctors said he would never speak again. 11 days later, he walked out of the hospital and asked when he could go back to the war. This is not a story about toughness. This is a story about something the human race forgot it had. And one frozen, quiet, impossible people that never did. You need to understand who the Finns were before the war. They were not warriors. They were farmers, fishermen, woodcutters. They lived in a country that gave them almost nothing. 6 months of darkness every year. Soil so poor it barely grew food. Winters so violent that livestock froze in barns. But every morning, the farmer walked out, picked up the axe, and kept going. Not with a war cry, not with a speech, just the axe, the wood, the next morning. For generations, this is how they lived. Nobody called it anything. It was just life. Then, the Soviet Union pointed 450,000 soldiers at their border. And the world learned what centuries of quiet suffering builds inside a people. November the 30th, 1939, 6 in the morning. Soviet bombers appeared over Helsinki without warning. They dropped leaflets that said, "We are not bombing you. We are dropping bread for the starving Finnish people." The Finns looked at the burning buildings and called the bombs Molotov's bread baskets. That is the first thing you need to know about Sisu. It has a dark sense of humor. Every military expert gave Finland 2 weeks. The New York Times wrote the obituary of a nation before the nation was dead. Finland had no tanks worth speaking of. Their air force was outnumbered, 15 to 1. Some soldiers shared rifles because there weren't enough to go around. 1 soldier, 1 rifle, between 2 men. And yet, they went. Let me tell you about a farmer named Simo. Before the war, Simo Häyhä grew up on a small farm in southeastern Finland. He liked hunting. He liked silence. He liked being alone in the forest. He was 5 feet 3 inches tall. When the war began, nobody picked him. Nobody trained him specially. He just picked up his rifle and walked into the trees. He wore all white to vanish into the landscape. He refused to use a telescopic scope because glass catches winter light and gives away your position. He used iron sights instead. The old way, the hard way. And here is the detail that stays with me. He packed his mouth with snow while he waited, so his warm breath wouldn't rise as mist. So not even the air he exhaled would betray him. He became part of the winter itself. The Soviet army started finding their men, one by one, in the snow. No warning, no sound, just gone. They called him the White Death. They sent teams of counter-snipers specifically to hunt him. He disappeared and reappeared like a ghost. They called in artillery strikes on coordinates where they thought he was. He moved before the shells landed. 100 days, in -40 degrees, alone in the forest. Over 500 confirmed kills. Then, On March the 6th, 1940, a Soviet soldier got lucky. An explosive bullet hit Simo in the lower left jaw. The blast took half his face. He was found unconscious in the snow. His comrades thought he was dead. He wasn't. 11 days later, he woke up. The war ended the same week. He recovered. He went home. He lived to be 96 years old. Farming, hunting, silence. The same life he always had. Reporters found him decades later and asked him how. How did you do it? What was your secret? Simo Häyhä looked at them and said, "I did what I was told to do, as well as I could." No memoir, no speech, no legacy announcement. He just went home and picked up the axe. That is Sisu. Now, here is what nobody tells you about this story. Simo Häyhä was not special. I don't mean that as an insult. I mean, he was not an exception. The entire Finnish army behaved this way. Outnumbered soldiers who held positions for days without reinforcement. Wounded men who refused evacuation. A nation that lost over 25,000 of its sons and did not fracture, did not surrender, did not collapse. The Soviet Union, one of the most powerful forces in human history, won the war technically, but they lost over 125,000 soldiers doing it, against farmers. The world asked, what is inside these people? And the Finns answered with a single word, Sisu. Not talent, not training, not superior weapons. The refusal to stop. Here is why I brought you to Finland tonight. Because you are living through a different kind of war. Not bullets, not borders. The war of almost. The business you almost started. The habit you almost built. The person you were almost becoming. Before something got hard. Before that feeling arrived. That hollow, cold, exhausted feeling. That whispers, you don't have what it takes. And you believed it. Because nobody told you that feeling is not the truth. It's the test. The Finns knew something about that feeling. They called it the bottom of the tank. And they knew every person has one. The moment where everything real and earned runs out. Most of the world treats that moment as the end. The Finns treated it as the starting line. Because they had discovered, through frozen winters and impossible odds, that beneath the tank you think is your last one, there is always one more. It only opens when you refuse to stop. The Finns don't teach Sisu in seminars. They don't sell it in courses. They pass it down, the only way it can be passed down, by doing it in front of their children, by waking up when the winter is darkest, by finishing the work when the hands are numb, by not quitting so loudly, so consistently, that their children learn without being told. This is what people like us do. You don't find Sisu. You build it, one refusal at a time. The cold shower you almost skipped. The work you stayed with when your mind was begging to leave. The goal you returned to after the world told you to let go. Each time, you are not just completing a task. You are writing a new record in your nervous system. I have been at empty before, and I kept going. Do it enough times, and the voice that used to say, "I can't," starts to get quieter, because it has lost too many arguments with the person who did it anyway. Simo Häyhä was asked one final thing before he died. A journalist asked him if he regretted the war. He paused for a long time. Then he said, "I only did my duty, and what my country asked of me, I tried to do well." No rage, no pride, no trauma on display. Just a man who, when the moment came, did not flinch. You will have your moment too. Maybe you already know what it is. The thing you have been circling, avoiding, postponing, waiting until you feel ready. The Finns have a message for you, delivered not in words, but in 105 days of impossible resistance. You will never feel ready. Go anyway. Every door I have opened has shown me the same thing in different languages. The Romans said, "Memento mori," remember you will die. The Japanese said, "Kaizen," small steps, always forward. The Buddhists said, "Maranasati," sit with the ending until it no longer frightens you. And the Finns said nothing. They just put on white and walked into the snow. The second tank is real. You just have to run out of the first one to find it. I go back so you don't have to stay stuck.